Welcome back guys to part 2 of the Distant Patrol 4-link build. So up here we've got some technical stuff we'll go through before we jump under the car and show you the setup and the geometry. So previous video we put the top hat on the diff and got it all set. Did have the brackets sort of tacked into spots and that, but we figured out that how the bracketry come from the kit actually wasn't going to work in our favour, so we've had to sort of alter it a bit to suit our wheelbase that we need to run the bigger tyres. So basically in a factory patrol in the GQ, this is for instance in here, have a 117-inch wheelbase. So that's from centre to centre of each hub, and that gives you a 2,973mm wheelbase. So with different sizing of lifts, you'll push that geometry out a bit further, and you'll notice that with links when you buy them from like say different companies and stuff, they'll go a +11, +15 and even up to a +20. We'll be running 35s, and to get that center point of cycling and articulation in it, we want that wheel to up travel and not foul on either side of the guards. That's sort of it's an annoying thing with the GQs, but it seems to always either foul on the front when they come up with the shorter arms. So we'll be pushing it out on a +15. So that will push it out to 2,988. So basically what we'll be going through here is when we relocate these brackets, we're working with a 90-degree triangle here, so it's pretty easy. But where we have our chassis coming across and we put our lower control arm, so here, X, this arm will come down to your diff, which will be here. And pretty much to move this mount back, the easiest way is just a triangle here. You got your 90, so whatever you push this here, we'll push this down here out. So we're just adding that measurement of 2988, and we'll measure from either wheelbase front and rear, and that should give us our +15. So once we've done that, we'll tack it all in, and then we'll cycle that suspension and make sure that clearance on that tyre works all right. So originally the brackets that do come from the kit, they have a centering hole in them, and that centering hole, put it to factory on that car. So the bracket we got, it sort of looks like this, comes down, and it's got like a rear locator for your new crush tube, and then the front original one. And that circle went over your original one and sets your bracket to get your long arms and all that kind of stuff set. But where this come was about 2973, which was a factory wheelbase and didn't work in our favour. So the other issue too we've come across is that the wagon body underneath fouls on the bracketry. And to get this to run nice with the chassis underneath to weld on, we're actually going to have to alter the bracket a little bit. So what we've decided to do is put it on a bit of an angle. So probably be a couple of degree angle, but this will remain in our spot that we want for our new crush tube, but the front one will come below the chassis. So what we've decided to do is bend it down a little bit, and we'll clean this all up and re-weld it. The only thing that could have an issue on is if you had your up travel and you had a lot of up travel, you might foul on the scalloping of up here because you are articulating that bracket down, but we're only doing a 3-inch lift, so it's not going to foul and it won't come in contact with that. The next thing that we will come across in the wagon, which will be pretty problematic, is the cross member. There's a factory cross member halfway through the arms, and basically between your chassis, like this, you got a tube that comes along up and then back down, and where these arms protrude through for your 4-link on cycling, being a 3-inch lift in the wagon, they will foul straight away on it. So my idea currently is to scallop these on an angle and run some half tubing through it to match the angle of the lowers, of the uppers, sorry, and see how that goes. We'll only tack it in place, and with cycling and bump stops and that, if it works I'll weld them all in, but if it doesn't we'll probably have to go down the avenue of a new cross member. Hoping not to do that because it's quite a fair job. Last time I did this on one of my utes, I did actually make a new cross member up, just because purely I had the space to do it and it was easy to do with a tray off, but with the wagon it's very hard space underneath there to do it. So these are the common things that you'll face with it, and this is probably a big reason why people don't do it in the wagons, but we'll go through and we'll try and make it all work. We're going to have to do it anyway, but go through, make it work, and I'll switch the camera to underneath the car and I'll show you what we're doing so you can get an idea.
Righto, so we've got the inner brackets in the car now on the inside of the chassis for the uppers. Basically, as I was talking up there on the whiteboard, we had to lower this section down because of the body clearance here, which does put that slightly on an angle, but as I was talking about that scallop, you wouldn't get enough up travel to hit this, so it works in our favour, it's all good. This locator on the back here is your locator for your crush tube, and that will set your outers too. And that's what we've done. So we've gone plus 15. So before it used to be tacked over here, we've gone plus 15 on that now. So the idea is to tack all this in place. If we're all happy, once all the geometry is all good and the wheelbase across both sides is equal, then we'll go through and fully weld it. I did add in a 20mm plug here so we can face that to the chassis, just so it's not a bracket that's welded to the outside and it's got flex in the inside or could tear apart, so that should help with that. And then we'll go through and then we'll shave this bottom section off and get a nice weld across the whole thing. With the upper, which comes through here, these links, if you can imagine it here, you should be able to see a cross member just in front of that, which is the factory one that goes over here. That's the one that we do have to chop into, so we will have to scallop it so that we can get this to get a bit of up travel. This car won't have a heap of up travel. We're trying to limit that. We don't really have much room to get the 35s to go up anyway, so we'll work around the bumps around that. Also, you will notice that there's a couple of things hanging around and that, so we do have the factory fuel lines and brake lines and that. That's something we'll do at the end of it and just work around it. Once you take all your brackets off, they do sort of splayed apart and you can do whatever you want with them. We'll either run them up the top here or maybe run them underneath or something like that. But other than that, there's not too many other things you need to sort of worry about. Just depends if your car, you've put more things in and stuff like that, you've got to change it around. But yeah, everything else should work out sweet for us. So I'll go through, tackle these brackets in, and then we'll go through the wheelbase and show you what we meant about that with the correct plus 15 measurement we need.
Righto, so we're going to talk about the wheelbase now. So basically setting your wheelbase to a plus 15, which will suit our needs, which would be around a 3-inch Lear 35s. You basically want to get a lot of reference points around your car, and the Patrol has a lot of areas you can get that from, but they also show a lot of different measurements and differences between each other, which is sort of a bit of a head f*** really. But basically, we set the front steering to be 0, and so that when we take off the swivel hubs, that angle of measurement doesn't change our track on the rear. So basically we've zeroed out the front steering in this as best as we could off certain reference points in the front. And that's just going to center of hub or a wheel stud that's been vertically leveled. So you can see here at the moment I've got a laser set up, and as the car sits, the level of the diffs are quite true to each other, like the jack stands, and I've got the self-leveling laser. So it levels itself. We're not using a static line here, but basically between stud to stud, center to center of them. And if you don't have someone with you, this sort of helps you too, because you can put your tape measure on the front stud, so say bottom or top, and then pull back and measure on here. So if you go on outside a stud on the front, you want to go inside a stud on the rear, vice versa if you go in or outside of that. And basically you want to keep checking each side, seeing where you're sitting at, and to get it within, I'd say, about a mil. And that's where we got to. I think it was like 0.25 or 0.5 of a mil on the rear. But, you know, in saying that, you're going off your eye, you're going off, you know, if that's perfect in the front, twist throughout the car, the body shape, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it might not be bang on. And we've come to accept that, yeah. Pretty much in this kit you have fixed lower arms, and in a perfect weld, yeah, if you set it all up, it should be all good. I wouldn't say factory is probably that crash hot either. I've never really measured it too much, but I doubt it would be amazing. But if we do get this through a wheel alignment and it doesn't show like true or within their figures, and they do go quite low in them, we've just accepted the fact that we'll have to go adjustable lowers to recorrect that. But basically, the measurements we've done, we've even used the inclinometer to put across along the bottom of the arms and check degrees between arms going up. So we did sort of have a bit of an issue there. pretty much where we've put it on the chassis and stuff, and we've put the crush tube through the chassis, moving the brackets around and everything like that, we've got about a 0.95 degree across that lateral plane across the chassis, and that's where our arms are on that angle. It's not awful. It's probably like, you know, 7 degrees this side, 8 degrees the other side. It's not horrible, but it's not ideal either. So we'll work through it. And we've got all the brackets welded in now. The outside ones are welded in too. And yeah, so basically it's pretty much bolted all up now. Do some more measurements, work it all out. But this seems to be the best way of doing the track width from what I've seen. Every other spot that I've taken measurements off, like locating holes in the chassis and stuff like that, surprisingly enough, they've actually haven't really worked out great, because you can pick holes off the chassis and that, and between those holes and your measurement of your diff, without moving the diff, I've had, you know, 3mm, 11mm and 7mm tolerances between them. So it just goes to show you that not every point you pick up is going to be true on this car. So take that in consideration, but like I said, if you do stuff it up, you can always go to the point of adjustable lowers and uppers, and then you can fine tune it through that way, but best to avoid that if you can. So now it's all in, we'll shoot into some welding video and show you all those brackets in.
Righto guys, so we're back under the car and we finished putting all the bracketry in. It's all welded out, all painted, and we've scalloped all the cross members and all that. Basically I'm just going to go through, show you a couple of points of interest, sort of what the kit looks like, and I'll show you sort of the remaining stuff that we've got to go. Some things that we've sort of picked up on, we might sort of change around just so we don't come across that later on or it damages anything. But other than that, the kit's worked out pretty well. It's pretty hard to like package into a wagon, especially with the rear up travel we're talking about and all that stuff, but it's all in now. It seems to be driving pretty nice. We'll send it down for a wheel alignment and we'll check out those figures and see how far off we are with the alignment and all the wheels and stuff. But like I did mention, we may have to change out these lowers, trying to avoid that. We did get it pretty damn close, but you know, if we wanted to track correctly, we may have to make them adjustable. But yeah, we'll see how we go with them. So I'll flip this camera around, we'll go through a couple of points of interest on the truck. So this is the upper control arm bracket that I was talking about on the whiteboard. This rear section is your new crush tube, which will set your lower on the outside. And the front one is missing now because we've cut it out. And the reason being, I'll try and show you as good as best I can. The body, you can see that bracket's very close to it. So like I said, we've actually put this bracket on a bit of an angle, and we've actually cut it down here, so it actually did taper down a bit, and then we just trimmed the bottom back off and welded the bottom of it. So yeah, we didn't get to use the front locator, which sets it all, but like I said, this kit only put it to 0, which is not what we wanted out of this, especially like, really, if you're putting a 4-link in any kind of 4-wheel drive or anything like that, you're most likely running other modified things. If you were running no lift in a patrol, you know, it's pretty pointless, I guess. Not many people are, but you wouldn't go to the effort of putting a 4-link in unless you really just cared about on-road characteristics. But in saying that, yeah, we've pushed it out a bit, so we had to change where this one went. And yeah, so it's not too bad. There is a little line marker in there with a preset laser cut 6mm hole, and you basically will drill that hole all the way through your chassis. obviously 6mm drill bits aren't that long, so you have to put them right on the end, so be careful not snapping them. But then once you've done that, you can send a hole saw through, and it has like a laser cut section out, so you're only tapping at the sides of that guide, and you'll hit that, and then you'll go all the way through. I'll guarantee right now that when you drill that hole saw, you will not drill that hole saw dead straight going through. So I did get my other mate while he's watching me to just watch like the horizontal and vertical of it as I do it. He sort of adjusted me, but even in saying that, still went through it's a bit of an angle. So we ended up running a bigger hole saw than what you need, just so we could set the tubing ourselves in there, and it seemed to work pretty well. The what do you call it? Bolts aren't on too much of an angle going through the chassis, and they line up on the outside pretty well. So this other point of interest here is the jam nuts on your upper control arm. So down the driver's side of a patrol, you have all your fuel lines and stuff like that, and brake lines. At the moment, we've sort of just got them. We've got them tech screwed with the original clamps, just as they pass over, just so they're out of the way at the moment. But yeah, we'll come up with a better idea, tack some bracketry underneath here and set them out of the way. But that jam nut there, the best thing you can do is flip that around so that it's on your top hat. That way, when it cycles up, you won't hit those lines as much, or if you sort of do, it's not sharp points. But yeah, we'll be controlling this with bump stops and everything like that, so we'll be able to limit that. But yeah, you can see how the body is very close to all this stuff in the car. That's why the wagons aren't a preferred 4-link choice. So we'll head over to the back, and we've got our top hat over here, and you'll be able to see the cross member here. So at the moment we're running about, I'd say 2 and a 2.5 inch lift, which we will be bumping up to a bit of a 3. And as it sits, this is sprung weight, so it's just sitting on full weight at the moment. And you can see that top cross member has actually been scalloped, and that's to account for this up travel and trying to get as much, you know, compression into it as we can before we have to stop it with the bumps. And look, there was a pain in the ass doing that cross member, like scalloping on a 45 or 30 degree angle or whatever the kit is, but scalloping that and then trying to blend it all in and stuff like that so it looks nice. So it was actually a fair pain. We got there in the end, but let's see, I'll come over here. And you can see just there, so we're looking down the link as we follow parallel to it, and you can see how that's being cut. That scallop is 45 to that. Now, this is definitely not something that is the correct way of doing it. In saying that, it's what people see, I guess. It looks neat enough to not look at it straight away, but in terms of cross members and stuff like that, this is probably not going to fall under the legal spot for engineering. But I guess, you know, you can't have everything sometimes. You could easily change this out. So this cross member goes to the chassis here. You have to cut all this box section out and run a new one. The other issue we have, if you see here, we got a body in the background which starts to taper up. That cross member, to clear our arms on here, we'd actually have to offset that cross member around the back, hoop around, and then come back down, and it'd be pretty full-on cross member to do, especially because cross members have to be a one-piece item. You'd be doing very well to try and slot that in one side and then feed it across to the other side and then weld the outsides of them. So you'd probably have to make something out of plate and then do a little bit of, what do you call it, probably chassis brackets on there just to brace it up for the stress along it. But yeah, like other than that, it's coming out pretty good. Pretty happy with it. So we've got the lower control arm brackets here, and these are a bit different to the inside ones. These are like laser cut, maybe 4mm, 3mm brackets, whereas the inside ones are 6mm. I guess, like, yeah, it's definitely going to bear what it needs to be and stuff like that. These ones on the upper control arms here are bearing a lot of kind of lateral force back into it as it cycles up and down. So these ones here sort of push it back through, and then the uppers sort of push it back. So it's all on, you know, your geometry of how your 4-link works with anti-squat and stuff like that. And in that sequence, your shocks and coils will bear that inertia force and, you know, not transfer it so much for your chassis. And what is sort of transferred is normally absorbed through the bushing. and that also, you know, counts on how much is plated and stressed around the chassis on the top brackets and stuff like that. So these lower control arms are all welded in, and I'll tell you right now, like, you can do nice welds on the bench and stuff like that, but once you start welding on chassis and shit, if you haven't got them prepped and clean, especially these old chassis, like, you've got muck, oil, everything like that and stuff just seeped into it. And I didn't have it on the time, but if I was to do it at the moment, I would probably heat the chassis up a bit more, just prep it and watch those oils rise, and then sort of acetone clean it and stuff. Did clean it as much as we could in that, prepped it all. But yeah, like, still contaminants come through and they do ruin your weld. In some spots at the top here, I couldn't get a really nice weld because of that, and we had to use a die grind and bury it out, and that was an absolute pain. So it's just things to think about and consider. Also, when putting these arms in, a lot of people seem to not know the way they go in. You have a bit of flat bar weld on the top here, and that is not to hit rocks underneath, that is to absorb the, how would you say it, the impact hits underneath and stop the tube from bending up. That's primarily what they're there for. And the issue with that is that you do get close to this body mount here, which you do have to normally shave on patrols for long arms and that, but yeah, we'll get to that later on once we start cycling and working out our points that we got to do. And down the bottom here, you can see where we've got our weld washers on the side there, just to beef up our lower control arm brackets on the axle tube. But other than that, that's pretty much the kit. So everything's looking pretty good. I'm happy that we've got it done in a wagon. I've done it in utes and stuff before, but this is the first time doing a wagon. And it was good to do a 4-link, you know, just before hitting the cruiser one again. So just jogged my mind on a couple of things again. It's been a while. But yeah, pretty happy with it. Pretty stoked. It'd be good to get on the tracks, and we've got a November trip coming up down the high country, so I'll try and get some filming of that. Get some GoPros on here so you can see what it looks like, but should handle pretty nice, being nice and long now, and a low centre of gravity in the car.
Righto guys, that's it for this week's episode. So that brings us to the finish of part 2 on the Patrol 4-link. So everything's done in there like I said, and now we do the fine tuning, just like the wheel alignment and stuff like that. We've got to get some new shocks to suit the rear now. Obviously we've got more travel, and we'll probably play around with some springs and stuff, just spring weights, and see what sort of works better in this car. And then we'll also set up our bumps and get that all working out nice and good for squat, and make sure it doesn't hit all the body and ruin all that. And try and keep those guards sort of intact and that, because they are notorious again, clipped by the wheels inside under compression. But yeah, pretty happy how it turned out, and I hope this video has been informative for you. I didn't want to go into too much detail because, like, at the end of the day, it is a welding kit. Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. It's got locating sections on and all that stuff. The geometry of it is pretty much done. So for you to come in as a customer, you know, you can come in there, chop all your stuff off, and it should nearly work out for you with some basic, you know, geometry things you need to do, like center points, where to put trusses and stuff like that. But other than that, it's an awesome kit. If you are looking for a Patrol one, DURRYS Custom do one. There's a couple of other companies out there that are sort of just like fabrication companies throughout Victoria and say Queensland. They do some kits around there and stuff like that, but off-the-shelf products, at the moment a 4-link from DURRYS is pretty much the only option. Or, like I said, you can go through, and if you're a bit more advanced, you're happy with geometry, stuff like that, there's 4-link calculators, you can start to design your own ones. And that's what we'll be going into with the Cruiser. You'll see over here. I'm designing a full 4-link kit to go into a 105 and have a full truss on there. We've got coilovers, triples, we've got all aluminium links going in, all, you know, adjustable bracketry and all that stuff through it, and it's running all DDBs, links, and we're also running the, the RF joints. So they're all 1.25 inch joints, and they're, you know, up there with some of the biggest joints you can get, and you're talking like, you know, rock bouncers, trophy trucks, stuff like that. So the Cruiser build and this are two different things. This one is going to be something well and truly over the top, and I understand that. A lot of people will look at me and probably go, why? In saying that, you do take stress out on things, so like big joints, you know, you can handle the articulation and how they move, so you're not wearing them down. And, you know, I've been told by people that are running these joints have been running for 10 years and haven't changed the bush yet. Whereas running a factory patrol bush. I don't know, they're like an 80 or 90 mil width. You know, you got that bind going forward like that, and yeah, they pretty much wear out. You got a car that's doing constant forward drive tracks, I'd say probably 6 to 9 months you'll flog those bushes out. So there's things to weigh up, and not everything's the best option. Sometimes things are the dearer option. You know, this is a good alternative. It's around that $2,200 to $2,400. So yeah, you need to weigh your options up and, you know, come to the conclusion of what you want, sort of thing. But the next video we'll be going into will be the cruiser build. So I'll be going a bit more detailed there. Just the way of reverse engineering to work out, you know, all my geometry and stuff like that, and then putting that through a calculator, working it out. We'll be sort of designing a bit of a kit here too for 105s. There's not really so much on the market for them. There's a couple of companies starting to pop up now with 105 truss kits with the bracketry on top, but they're only a small stubby kind of thing. So I'm trying to get that full bracketry on top to accommodate all your coils, bumps, stuff like that, and then get into a nice package, get a laser cut up, and then start selling them off for you guys. If you do wish to push further with the full length kit, I should be able to supply most of the things going through that. But yeah, at the moment it's an R&D stage. Once mine's all finalised and I'm happy with it, I'll put all this stuff through CAD, get it all worked out, and yeah, get it all lasered up, and I'll put out something on social medias just about what I'm doing and how much it's going to cost. But I'm trying to keep it down quite low. I don't want to make a massive amount of money off it. I just sort of want people to get out there and, you know, get some cool rigs happening and stuff like that. So I'll leave you with that, guys. That brings us to the end of this episode, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and share around so everyone else can pick up on the videos that are coming out. Thanks, guys.